Welcome to Sci-Fi Quantum Archives. Don't forget to like, subscribe and explore. It began with an image posted by a teenager in Cordoba, taken from a public Mars reconnaissance database. The photo had poor contrast, redshifted glare across one edge, and a blurred figure toward the left. Nothing unusual for someone scrolling through satellite dumps at 3 in the morning. A comment below mentioned pareidolia, the mind's need to find faces, forms, patterns. Someone replied with a link to a Europa surface scan from 4 years prior. The image resolution dropped halfway through the download, but just before the failure, the shape appeared again. Tilted at the same angle. Positioned beside a frozen ridge line under different light, different orbit, different world. The thread gained 17 upvotes before dropping off the front page. In Ulu, a retired technician pulled up his archived feeds from a Chinese Titan orbiter launched over a decade earlier. The mission was never widely covered, only surface mapping and methane studies, but the imagery remained buried in the raw telemetry. 3/4 into frame 629, the same shape emerged. Lighter than shadow, darker than terrain. A narrow form pressed into the haze like an indentation in cloud. Orientation matched Mars. Distance calculated at 400 meters from probe to subject. No movement, no variation across the 5-frame burst. Not a data glitch. Not lens dust. He said nothing online. Simply bookmarked it, watched it again at 3x zoom, and left the room without turning off the monitor. In a lab below Pasadena, the intern responsible for real-time Europa feed reviews leaned closer to his screen. His job involved nothing more than cataloging, frame identifiers, location codes, timestamp verification. No part of him expected repetition. Yet there it was, half buried in the top left quadrant of an incoming surface map. The outline bent at an angle that made no sense given Europa's sun angle or the probe's trajectory. He searched old visual packets to compare. No formal tools, just his own folders from undergrad research. 32 minutes passed before the 2007 ESA Mars file opened, almost frozen from age. It took 3 re-encodings to clean the distortion. When the image settled, he stopped breathing. Same contour, same tilt. His notes went untouched. He exported the Europa shot and pulled the Mars file into parallel view. Not a glitch. Not equipment reuse. Different missions. Different decades. Different planets. He called no one. Didn't log the anomaly. The lights hummed overhead in that slow rhythm known only to low-security basements. He uploaded both images to a disposable drive, locked the room from inside, and printed them on matte thermal paper, just to feel the weight of the proof. No part of the silhouette changed. On the forum where the first post appeared, someone noticed both images had vanished. Links dead. Profiles deleted. IP histories scrambled by default Reddit purges. The Cordoba thread closed without warning. 17 upvotes disappeared from the board, replaced by a "content not available" marker. The teenager who posted it had moved on to telescope mods. Said nothing when messaged. At the edge of that silence, a second thread appeared. Not on Reddit this time, but a smaller, older site designed for radio wave anomaly tracking. The file attached to the post was uncaptioned. No coordinates, no context. Just another planetary surface. Titan again, with a human-like outline in the distance, impossible scale for the environment. No footprints. No depression. No reflection. The shape didn't seem to cast anything. No shadow. No light obstruction. Only presence. The administrator deleted the thread an hour later. Claimed file corruption. His statement didn't match the screenshots already circulating. Someone had archived the post in plaintext. Someone always does. At a university lab in Kyoto, 2 graduate students found themselves arguing over the lighting vector discrepancies in an uncredited Europa photo. Their professor watched in silence as the images cycled on loop, shoulders tense beneath the hum of ceiling fans. One student closed her laptop without comment, left the room, and didn't return that semester. The other ran a spectrum filter across the terrain and isolated the shape. Infrared showed thermal absence. Ultraviolet revealed a warped outline. He uploaded his findings to a private drive and disabled syncing. That night he called no one. Sleep came late, broken, unfamiliar. In the weeks that followed, more images surfaced. Not on forums. Not from archives. Not from scientists. Personal drives. Old email chains. Unsorted downloads from mission dumps long forgotten. Every few days, another version of the silhouette emerged, blurred, distant, unchanged. No names spoken. No theories offered. Just eyes scanning pixel by pixel, unsure if what they saw was real, but unable to look away. And still, no one asked why it never moved. Requests didn't arrive through official channels. They never do. A pale envelope arrived at an office in Tsukuba, unsigned, sealed without adhesive, tucked inside a shipment of lunar regolith data. Inside, a folded note marked with 4 timestamps and a string of numbers that corresponded to Europa telemetry coordinate. No greeting. No return address. Just a map folded with care by someone who expected it to be handled the same way. Across the ocean, a climatologist posted to the southern Andes received an alert on an instrument not wired to any network. Neutrino irregularities outside measurable error. Nothing catastrophic, nothing explainable either. He reset the sensor, left it running, and returned to his notes on polar mesentrails. The alert repeated 6 hours later with identical intensity. He exported the values, ran a correlation check, and paused when the reference codes matched a planetary survey tag from Titan's polar cusp. An exact match. At the headquarters in Darmstadt, access was revoked on a storage sector never meant to hold visual data. 12 hours later, a coded message unlocked it again. A queue of restricted files appeared, none with mission identifiers, all marked with the same angular anomaly. One technician made the mistake of exporting the files to an unapproved system. His credentials were removed by morning. A note on his desk advised medical leave. No one spoke to him again. Each message different. Each invitation silent. By the time the committee formed, no one had been officially assigned, yet all had arrived. A room without insignia housed the first meeting. No screens. No nameplates. Just 12 chairs, none matching. 12 people who had each seen something that didn't belong in the physical rules they once trusted. Faces unfamiliar. Silence lingered too long before anyone spoke. A printout was placed on the center table, grainy and misaligned, showing a Mars horizon from 2007. The same silhouette leaned forward at an angle too shallow to be cast by Phobos, too precise to be error. A voice from the end of the table asked if it appeared on Europa. Another answered yes. Another asked about thermal profiles. A shake of the head. No heat. No absorption. Just subtraction. A shape that seemed to exist not by presence but by absence, removed from surrounding energy, carved into radiation with no measurable cause. Data packets were shared manually. Drives passed without conversation. Each image layered over the next, lined up pixel by pixel until the angles aligned in a way geometry shouldn't allow. Environments different. Cameras different. Years apart. Identical inclination. On paper, the shadow's lean matched 43.1 degrees relative to the planetary axis each time, regardless of terrain elevation, light vector, or camera orientation. Adjustments for curvature, for rover tilt, for atmospheric distortion, none altered the result. A tilt locked not to surface, not to object, but to a fixed external axis no one could locate. The physicist from Rome calculated that for such alignment to repeat across 3 planetary bodies, a synchronized triangulation was required. Not one that followed gravitational harmonics or orbital resonance, but one that mapped spatial angle across independent celestial surfaces. When plotted in a simulation, the angle bisected the inner solar system cleanly, an axis cutting through space like a wire, aligning nothing except those singular points. Someone asked how that was possible. No one answered. A woman from Tsukuba whispered about shadows cast from outside reference frames, but her words faded halfway through. They began checking unrelated missions. Probes from different decades. Archive drives with broken links. Each time they found a match, it added weight. No variance in silhouette density. No change in edge softening. No measurable decay in magnetic correlation. A presence immune to light conditions. Blind to shadow behavior. Locked not to camera but to space itself. One member ran a quantum overlay using meson data from neutrino detections in Chile. The same shape emerged in scattering patterns, independent of terrain or mineral interference. When mapped visually, the outline reappeared, not photonic, not thermal, not material. Only present. They agreed to catalog findings under a temporary name. No official designation. Only a symbol drawn by hand and passed quietly, a tilted figure over a circle. No shared language, no shared discipline, yet all used the same shape instinctively. The room was not used again after that week. Conversations continued elsewhere. Quiet messages, encrypted files, unmarked parcels. New data points filtered in, never with names, never with sender tags. Each time the shape aligned. Each time the tilt remained. No signatures. No briefings. No leaks. Just the same figure, standing where no light should bend. They began with color filters, the kind used in early mineral differentiation. Simple overlays passed through shortwave scans. The silhouette remained unchanged, tone neutral, unaffected by contrast stretching. Infrared didn't erase it. Instead, it clarified edges previously lost to surface dust. The figure grew sharper, legs parted slightly, one arm low, palm turned inward. That angle again, unchanged from planet to planet. No thermal trail followed. Heat maps flattened in its vicinity, as if radiation slipped past without resistance. Sensors didn't register drop or rise. Only a lack, a blank space where infrared should have diffused. Engineers suspected failure in imaging arrays. Fault isolation checks returned normal values. One suggested mirror damage. Another pulled a Titan frame from a Russian probe. Same imprint, different lens, no damage, no excuse. The ultraviolet pass came next. Older rovers rarely carried full-spectrum kits, but atmospheric entry probes stored snapshot. Over Europa, sunlight refracted off micro-ice particles at a steep angle. Most returned expected scatter. One anomaly cut through the frame like ink across paper, not reflective, not refracted, not absorbed. The shadow showed contour where no body stood. Its arms bore slight texture, striated along one side, not clothing, not tool, something more elemental, etched not drawn. In a French observatory, radio wave mappings were superimposed across terrain prints from a deep space archive. Alignment held. Frequency drift did nothing. Whether low-range planetary radar or high-band solar burst capture, the form appeared again. Not reflective. Not emissive. Transparent to field logic but present in amplitude returns. The technician locked the frame in a layered composite, wiped the server access log, and left the building without collecting her coat. Neutrino scatter was never meant for this kind of use. The data required months of parsing, massive wavefronts processed across seafloor observatories. In one such file, unrelated to any planetary mission, an anomaly mapped clean against background radiation. Irregular shape, nothing by itself. When rotated 91 degrees and matched against the silhouette index, it fell into place like cast into mold. No variation. Matched to 6 decimal points. Physicists argued over signal contamination. Software corrections were rewritten. Results stayed. Attempts to map the anomaly onto geological formations failed at every step. No craters matched. No mineral protrusions aligned. Shadow edges refused terrain constraints. Where a rock should cut the line, it didn't. Where elevation should distort the limb, the shape remained whole. One analyst laid a topographical map of Mars against Titan's methane basin. The silhouette retained proportions. Not scaled. not reoriented. Identical imprint stretched across planetary bodies with gravity differentials, erosion histories, and solar positioning no algorithm could normalize. Models broke. Rescaling attempts fractured meshes. No astrophysical projection could reconcile the data. Teams grew quiet. Reports stopped being printed. Notes passed without signatures. Observations began to feel like rituals. Repetitions of measurements no one expected to change, but everyone kept taking. Late one night, a Polish technician, working off-book in a decommissioned lab, layered every confirmed image into a stacked sequence. No blur appeared in transition. No shape loss. Even alignment software, not designed for this type of overlap, failed to detect variance. The figure maintained exact spatial imprint despite camera height, lens distortion, planetary curvature. No human artifact behaves this way. No geological process repeats under random planetary drift. Some suggested artifact overlap. Others hinted at masking. The room always fell quiet after that suggestion. Eyes drifted toward screens, then toward floor. Not one person asked whether the shape existed. Only why it refused to be different. No terrain had claimed it. No light had moved it. No instrument had named it. But it stayed. Always that angle. Always that presence. Someone traced the timestamps. Not casually. Not the way time is usually handled in mission logs, with rounding errors and coded offsets to adjust for signal travel, equipment drift, orbital lag. This was full reconstruction. Raw telemetry scraped down to transmission delay, synchronized to Earth reference clocks using atomic beat timing pulled from deep space tracking arrays. Dozens of feeds pulled from backup storage, most never intended for reprocessing. No interface, just manual parsing line by line. The first convergence came from Europa. That image, the one stored on a secondary server beneath a naming error, carried a timestamp adjusted for a 12-minute signal delay. Not unusual for its orbital distance. But when realigned with the probe's original onboard clock and recalibrated through the Jet Propulsion Deep Network's master timing system, the corrected timestamp landed at 3:19:46 Universal Time Coordinated. A Mars image from a 2007 reconnaissance orbiter, previously dismissed due to sensor loss in Quadrant 4, received the same treatment. Estimated delay at acquisition plus onboard clock error corrected. Adjustment passed through 3 independent servers. The final result, 3:19:46 Universal Time Coordinated. No rounding. No margin of error. Titan's image came next. A surface scan partially corrupted during descent phase, with fragments of visible terrain layered between telemetry dump. That one took longer. Atmospheric bounce made delay unpredictable. A Brazilian data scientist modeled Doppler irregularities manually over 2 weeks. He ran the model 12 times, each time accounting for signal distortion patterns left in telemetry metadata. The convergence time, 3:19:46 Universal Time Coordinated. 3 planets, 3 missions. 3 cameras operated by unrelated agencies, launched across different decades, pointing in different directions, none under shared command. 1 identical timestamp. More images followed. Lesser-known ones, never published. A test drone on Phobos. A calibration shot near Ganymede's terminator line. A magnetic field diagnostic over Enceladus, not even visual, just a waveform snapshot, logged through incident radiation timing. Each one, when reconstructed precisely, returned to the same point. 3:19:46 Universal Time Coordinated. Some tried converting it to local planetary time. Made no difference. The form always appeared at what Earth clocks would mark as that exact second. A technician tried scrubbing the data. Shifted delay assumptions. Altered propagation calculations. Skewed orbital offset tables. Result stayed. Someone else ran reversal checks. Subtracted delays. Adjusted for light angle, solar incidence, Doppler drift. No change. Timestamp landed with the same conclusion each time. Not approximate. Not close. Absolute. That second wasn't an average. It wasn't rounded. It was fixed. As if every instance of observation, across orbits, across cameras, across years, aligned to one singular moment, not from the perspective of the observers, but from the observed. The room where the findings were shared didn't speak at first. There wasn't much to say. The implications reached beyond surveillance, beyond coincidence, beyond error. This wasn't an object being seen at different times. This was something seen at one time from multiple places. A fixed frame, a fixed pose, across surfaces separated by millions of kilometers and decades of launch chronology. It did not matter when a rover arrived, or when a probe was launched, or what planet it landed on. The moment the silhouette entered frame, time folded inward, aligning everything toward a single coordinate hidden beneath time codes, waiting to be decoded. No one spoke of simultaneity. Too many variables. But the presence of correlation was unshakable. The one standing still was not bound to distance. Everything else was. The unit assigned to Elysium had not been powered in 6 years. Dust lay in layers across its solar panels thick enough to choke the cells. Officially retired after a fault in its navigational array, it remained catalogued under a generic asset tag in a forgotten subsystem of the Martian Surface Operations Archive. A suggestion surfaced, never signed, to bring it back online. No discussion followed. No directive sent. Just coordinates punched into a dormant uplink. Transmission marked routine maintenance. All commands routed through older ground stations in Canberra and Madrid, shielded under legacy protocols. The route chosen bypassed current research zones. The destination fell into a quiet wedge of Elysium Planitia where no geological features justified deployment. Still, movement began. Incremental. Calculated. No deviation. Positioning adjusted slowly to replicate an angle recorded 17 years earlier from a lost photographic burst. The original file, overexposed, misaligned, deemed unusable, was not listed among mission highlights. Yet someone had kept it. Noted the shadow. Marked the tilt. Time of day matched to the second. Azimuth corrected. Camera lens switched to wide field, low exposure. Atmospheric conditions logged, though atmosphere hardly existed. The rover neared the target point. Rock distribution unchanged. No movement detected. Transmission log indicated minimal external interference. No seismic shift. No electromagnetic distortion. No particle flux beyond Martian norms. Final image instruction sent. Imaging software buffered longer than expected. Not stalled. Not crashed. Just longer. The frame arrived incomplete. Upper quadrant whitewashed by solar reflection. Lower quadrant muddied by terrain glare. Only the center remained clear. The silhouette was present. Slightly forward-leaning. Elbows low, shoulders angled, head shifted by 2 degrees. Not the pose from before. The face, no. No face. No features. Not expressionless. Absent. The orientation had changed. No longer turned away. This time it faced the lens. Nothing in telemetry suggested motion. No pixels blurred. No wind. No dust lift. Yet position implied response. Not in real time. Not reactive. As if placement had always been meant for that exact moment, prepared years in advance. Seconds later, contact ceased. No disconnect command was issued. No error logged. Battery still viable. Panel draw functional. Internal temperature nominal. Memory address intact. Yet no signal returned. Fallback commands rerouted to secondary protocols. Ground uplink confirmed handshake had failed. The unit, still listed as active, showed null response across all systems. No second image transmitted. Only silence. The image was pulled from buffer storage within 30 seconds of receipt. Copied once. Burned to archival format. Distributed to 4 terminals. Displayed briefly, each time at half brightness. No one spoke while reviewing. The alignment had held. Same timestamp. Same position. Only the direction had changed. Europa's surface registered colder than expected. The thermal readings from orbit hadn't prepared the insertion team for how quickly the probe's outer shell began to harden after descent. Ice locked around the hull tighter than simulations projected. Descent slowed by 2.4 meters per second. No equipment failure. No mechanical resistance. Just drag, gradual, unaccounted for, not atmospheric, not material. The drill continued downward, layer by layer, melthead pushing into strata untouched by sun or wind or any history except pressure. Light diffused oddly through the borehole. Refractions appeared inconsistent with ice purity. Readings indicated laminar clarity, but onboard cameras caught light shifts at unexpected angles, edges that bent, shapes that curved where none should. Frame 78 caught reflection. The engineers dismissed it first as internal glare. Reflection off bore shaft curvature. But the image showed no repetition of the probe's housing. Instead, it captured an upright figure, centered, slim, angled away from the light. Not in the lens. In the ice. Depth confirmed. Refracted distance measured at 12 meters beneath camera depth. The surface above had sealed again, pressure equalizing too fast for optical backscatter. Yet the figure remained in every third frame, never directly, always slightly misaligned. An artifact, they said. Until the orientation remained fixed across rotations. 3-axis adjustments failed to break alignment. Camera moved. Ice didn't. Shape held. Drag increased without explanation. Thrusters engaged for course correction. No change. Readouts flatlined for 12 seconds. Light dimmed at core transmission. No blackout. Just compression. Bandwidth narrowed. Data streamed slower. Frame rate dropped by half. In frame 102, the figure appeared directly beneath the drill tip, refracted at precise center. Its limbs extended outward, not reaching, not gesturing, simply placed. As if the ice had wrapped around it first and waited for arrival. Pressure sensors pinged a spike. Not external. Internal. From within the probe's own stabilizing cavity. Instruments recalibrated. Error margins recalculated. Nothing breached. Nothing entered. Only weight increased, as if gravity had altered slightly, not globally, just locally. Right under the hull. The drag ceased abruptly. Probe continued descent at nominal speed. Systems green. Signal clean. No explanation surfaced. The footage was archived immediately. Not shared across the mission logs. Downloaded to personal hardware. Images reviewed in silent rooms under dim monitors, brightness reduced to minimum, not for power conservation, but for something quieter than that. No shape move. No frame skip. The figure remained. Contact never broke. Power remained constant. No alarm triggered. Yet morale fractured without formal cause. Personnel began to rotate early. Requests for reassignment increased. One operator refused to enter the control bay without another present. Another wrote down all time stamps by hand each morning. No one asked why. The silhouette beneath the ice had not shifted. It never needed to. It had been waiting in place long before the drill arrived. Long before the mission existed. Long before names were given to planets and water and descent. Only gravity remembered. The meeting room had changed. Chairs thinner. Lighting colder. A hum from the air vents that hadn't existed in earlier sessions. Small details accumulate when the shape of a room begins to close in. Conversations shortened. Fewer notes exchanged. No shared meals after debrief. Laptops no longer left unattended. Arguments began without warning. One physicist, face worn from nights without pause, suggested the figure wasn't subject to planetary surface laws. Not a shadow. Not a projection. An imprint. Dimensional in presence, not constrained to our vector of time. A stationary location in space, he said, visited by time itself from different directions. He said this slowly. No metaphors. No dramatics. Just the facts as he calculated them. That it didn't move because it didn't need to. Because everything else did. Silence followed. Not from awe. From refusal. A biologist from Bern stood without packing her things and left without address. No one followed. A systems analyst pushed back from the table and turned off his monitor mid-sentence. Another stared down at his notepad, pencil unmoving, as if waiting for words that wouldn't arrive. No one could disprove the suggestion. That was the problem. Funding discussions stalled. A senior liaison who had never attended in person issued a memo without timestamp, declaring redirection of all spectral imaging efforts. No signature. No channel trace. All terminal access to anomaly-tagged datasets was revoked within the same hour. Passwords rejected. Clearance levels overwritten. No explanation offered. No appeal channel available. The committee, once 12, now met with 6. 2 stayed silent throughout. 1 typed continuously, never sharing the output. Another ran projection models with no screen connected. 1 reviewed old transcripts without reading aloud. No one disagreed anymore. There was nothing left to argue. The database containing composite silhouettes was found to be missing 7 entries. Backup drives showed corruption logs without cause. Physical records remained, but only those not linked to any networked device. Hard copies. Drawn images. Photographs pinned to corkboards no one acknowledged in report. Personnel changes followed. Some reassignments came with relocation notices. Others simply didn't appear for check-in. No cancellation emails. No handoff of research. Just absence. Desks cleared by unknown staff. Personal belongings boxed without inventory. 1 researcher's access badge continued logging into a defunct basement lab for 4 nights after his departure was confirmed. Security footage showed an empty hallway. Lights on. Door unlocked. No movement recorded. The room where the final gathering was scheduled never unlocked. Swipe cards denied. Interior lights remained on for 11 hours past closing time. Maintenance reported no malfunction. By month's end, no trace of the task force remained on internal documentation. Meeting minutes wiped. Project names replaced with placeholders. Image archives reduced to thumbnails without metadata. A single folder labeled miscellaneous held 23 time-stamped images, all blank. The hallway outside the former operations center remained lit regardless of hour. Motion sensors disabled without override. On some nights, staff reported printer activation with no input. Blank sheets. Identical margin spacing. No ink. No signal source. No inquiry followed. No announcement made. It ended without language. He worked alone. No badge. No building. No clearance. Just an aging apartment in a coastal city where the sky never quite cleared and the sea kept to itself. The work no longer required authorization. Satellite feeds were public now, delayed, diluted, low resolution, but still enough. Enough to look. Not at Mars. Not at Europa. Not at Titan or Enceladus or Ganymede. At home. He moved frame by frame through weather data, each timestamp manually adjusted, each satellite orbit plotted by hand. No automation. No shortcuts. The feeds came from agencies that had forgotten his name, systems designed by people who never learned what he'd buried in folders that no longer had labels. He watched storm systems form and dissipate. Watched trade winds. Watched jet stream disruptions and barometric stutters over open water. Nothing out of place. Until one image paused. A low-orbit pass over the equatorial Pacific, 27 kilometers above sea level, angled northeast. Cloud formation barely formed. No radar returns of interest. Just a wide sheet of vapor across ocean surface, blue under silver under blank sky. The shape appeared near frame center. Not strong. Not sharp. Not immediate. But aligned. Offset by 3 degrees from true vertical, identical to the records he hadn't accessed in 12 years. The tilt. The limbs. The posture of stillness that could not be mistaken for coincidence. The satellite had captured the shape from above. It stood in open water. Not floating. Not submerged. Placed. Position triangulated to latitude 12.1, longitude 156.3. No island. No buoy. No military asset. Nothing on shipping manifest. Ocean current unaffected. He checked the timestamp. 3:19 and 46 seconds Universal Time Coordinated. The same second. The same second it had appeared on Mars, Europa, Titan, and Enceladus, and beneath the ice where light no longer traveled straight. He cross-checked orbital alignments for that date. Planetary conjunction. Not exact, but close enough to raise hairs on the neck. Venus, Earth, and Mars held an alignment arc within 4 degrees. The kind of event that meant nothing to weather systems, nothing to satellites, nothing to human structures or algorithms. But he had already stopped thinking in terms of causality. The image couldn't be explained. So he didn't try. He printed it on cheap paper. Pinned it beside older images pulled from folders sealed in moisture bags. Laid them side by side. It didn't blur. Didn't shift. Didn't lean. Every image different in lighting, contrast, clarity. Every shape the same. A week passed. The weather data feed continued logging requests from his IP address for 6 days beyond the last time he typed a query. The 7th day, nothing. The apartment remained locked. Lights off. Dishes untouched. Computer still on. Screensaver running through default cycles. The printer tray held one final sheet. Blank. No message. No image. Just page margins set to match the others. No missing person report was filed. No one arrived to collect the files. He had never spoken about what he'd seen. Never tried to publish. Never sought explanation. Just watched. Until something watched back. Access permissions began to fail without error messages. Not all at once. Just enough to suggest misconfiguration. Mars reconnaissance datasets timed out. Europa surface mosaics loaded blank tiles. Titan's spectrography map returned a checksum mismatch no patch could fix. Server logs showed activity. Not deletions. Not file moves. Activity. Requests routed through public access mirrors stalled at handshake. Alternate download links redirected without destination. No archive confirmed what had changed. No statement released. Pages remained. Footers intact. Search bars functional. But the images, gone. Not marked removed. Not flagged. Gone. Users in astronomy forums noticed first. A thread dated 7 years back. An amateur post cataloging polar anomalies from Cassini's flyby. Lost all embedded images. Hyperlinks still displayed titles. Descriptions remained word for word. But where image previews had been, empty frames sat like placeholders. No message. No reason. A second user checked a saved copy of the same archive on a personal external drive. 1 terabyte partition. No cloud sync. No recent edits. Image opened without warning. File displayed for 3 seconds before freezing. System hang. Reboot loop. Upon restart, file directory corrupted. Drive made unreadable. Same sequence repeated across 4 systems. A collective emerged in private chat group. Not researchers. Not analysts. Just watchers. People who remembered what had been posted, who recognized when pieces began to vanish. Screenshots were compared. Some matched. Others looked wrong, angles off by a degree, contrast shifted, time stamps scrubbed. All from official records. A few still had originals. Not from online repositories. Old hard drives pulled from disused towers. Archived not by intention, but by accident. Forgotten folders saved during university projects, freelance research, idle curiosity. Images uncompressed. Unedited. Stored before any deletions could reach them. One showed the Elysium image in full resolution. Cropped versions had circulated in earlier years. The full frame revealed more terrain than remembered. A sloped rock face, angled wrong for the rover's lens. Shadow aligned not with terrain, but with camera. Offset downward as if acknowledging the lens directly. The user who uploaded the frame to an encrypted board received no reply. 36 views. No response. The post time-stamped clean. The file gone within 40 minutes. Search functions altered themselves. Queries for Mars shadow anomaly rerouted to atmospheric reflection discussions. Europa silhouette threads marked resolved. Titan imaging errors categorized under compression issues. Even cached pages redirected to landing site overviews, scenic mosaics, mission infographic. Language changed. Memory didn't. Those who remembered the angles didn't need images. The tilt remained behind their eyes. Not haunting, not lurking, just present, till unbent. One screenshot survived uncorrupted. Stored in a cold warehouse server maintained by a defunct university club. Image shows low orbital pass over Titan's methane basin. Shape barely visible against terrain. Same proportions. Same absence. Timestamps intact. No metadata tampering. No alignment drift. No one knew who uploaded it. No one tried to trace the server. It stayed online for 91 days. No one mentioned it again. The mission was unlisted. No press release. No launch footage. No public telemetry feeds. No agency claimed the payload. The booster carried no insignia. The manifest leaked as a numbers-only sequence. Coordinates, date, mass, destination. Deep orbital insertion, velocity plotted for an outbound arc beyond Mars, slingshotting off Jupiter toward a zone marked by nothing. The probe itself had no name. Label read MHR3 on internal wiring. Shielding thinner than protocol required. Camera rig fitted with triple redundancy, an array not typical for a scout. No drill, no sample return unit, no spectrometer. Only passive sensors. Imaging first. Observation only. The destination was a dead site. A landing module sent decades ago, never recovered, buried under dust and silence since atmospheric entry. It had cooled years before power loss, metal warped by exposure and gravity too weak to hold heat. The site held no research value, no mineral interest, no historical relevance, no known anomaly. And yet, the probe's descent targeted that module precisely. Coordinates matched to 7 decimal points. The first transmission arrived 16 hours post-entry. Terrain flat. No wind. No shift in ground gradient. The module remained intact, its frame collapsed inward from pressure loss. No signs of impact damage. Solar arms folded shut. Long abandoned. Nothing moved. The second transmission came 2 hours later. Camera had rotated. A minor adjustment in angle, 3 degrees east. The image captured terrain slope, horizon curve, surface markings eroded by time. The third transmission was smaller. Single frame. No telemetry header. No imaging code. A still. It showed the module, centered. To its right, a figure. Full height. Unblurred. No longer translucent. No longer a pattern. Not absence, not interference, not artifact. Presence. Standing close to the collapsed frame. One leg forward. Arms lowered. Body angled toward the object on the ground, not toward the camera. No tilt. No posture of retreat. Not observing. Not positioned for escape. Waiting. No motion detected. No system alert. No radiometric signature. No magnetic anomaly. But the cameras captured shape with too much clarity. Light bent with exactness. Edges too sharp to be lens behavior. Dust on the surface clung tighter near its base. The ground remembered weight. No further images followed. Transmission ended 3 minutes later without shutdown sequence. System log frozen mid-ping. Heartbeat ceased. Attempts to recover signal failed across 3 relay stations. Ground controllers rotated bandwidth, adjusted frequency, pinged fallback systems. No reply. The probe remained responsive at circuit level, but no data moved. Final memory pull showed a partial frame from internal diagnostics. Same image, slightly degraded, same orientation. The figure had not changed position. 3 days later, the command logs were archived under an unrelated project ID. No follow-up mission filed. No summary compiled. No name ever assigned to the probe. The coordinates remained listed. The image was not erased. Just forgotten. Thank you for watching and sticking with me to the end. Now, if you believe humanity deserves a future among the stars, do subscribe now. Only those who'd abandon Earth to its fate will scroll past.